item will be afforded an opportunity during the discussion of that item. Customers wishing to speak on matters not listed on the agenda will be given an opportunity to do so under the heading Customers to be Heard Recognitions. Each person requesting the opportunity to speak is asked to fill out a request to speak form located on the table in the back of the room and present it to the administrative assistant in attendance at the meeting. Any follow-up or feedback will be done by email or on anything that cannot be resolved this evening. I'll also note that Commissioner Heidi Durand will be participating in this meeting via interactive technology from the address of 3625 22nd Avenue South, Moorhead, Minnesota 56560, which location is open and accessible to the public during the meeting. Reminder to commissioners attending via interactive technology, please make sure that your camera and microphone are turned on so that we can see and hear you during the meeting. With that, I'll call the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call vote. Borgen? Baker?
Here.
Ness? Lyseth?
Here.
And Duran?
Here.
And Paulson here. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Lyseth, second by Borgen. Roll call vote. Borgen?
Yes.
Baker? Aye. Ness?
Aye.
Lyseth?
Aye.
Durand?
Yes.
And Paulson, yes. Next item is the approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Motion by Baker, second by Durand. Roll call vote. Borgen?
Yes.
Baker?
Aye.
Ness? Lyseth?
Yes.
Durand?
Yes.
Paulson? Yes. Our next item will be customers to be heard recognition. Travis?
Push all the buttons tonight. We'll go ahead. We got a customer to be heard. We'll do that one first, and then we'll do recognitions after that.
Sounds great. Yes, you can come to the podium. That'd be great. Thank you.
So my name is Rose Hansen. I live at 115 15th Street South. I was one of the first homes that had a tankless water system that you guys did a water meter replacement on, and there was damage to my backflow valve. After this was done, I've had 3 plumbers take a look at this now, and all 3 plumbers tell me that this is a direct correlation to the water pressure surge after having my water meter replaced. And to this date, at this point, I've been told that it's deemed incidental by you guys and your contractor, who was not a licensed plumber, completing this work. And so I'm kind of frustrated that I have now a financial expense that I was not expecting due to an item I did not have control over. So I kind of wanted to bring it to the commission to see. As of right now, it's a $572 repair that they're 95% chance certain will fix it. However, they're not entirely certain. And if it's not, it's about a $15,000 repair. So I'd like to get some form of assistance, given that, again, I didn't have control over who completed the work. When they outside of when they completed the work, I had no control over it. And again, I'm not entirely pleased to know that a non-licensed person was completing repairs on my water line. That's the extent.
Okay, well, thank you for coming tonight, and certainly is a frustrating situation. I know the general manager has kept us up to date on where this is at. And just for your information, and I'm sure you've been told this, we have a contract with a licensed contractor to replace these meters. Okay. The risk for any damage to any residents falls on the contractor themselves. Mm-hmm. And so that's all I really know at this point. I don't know the discussions that MPS has had with the contractor. But our role certainly could be one of writing letters and dealing with the contractor as far as them managing their liability and their risk under the contract that they have with MPS. Traditionally, something like this would fall under the contractor's insurance policy.
Yes.
And so I'm not sure where those items are at this moment. Can I ask, you do have water back on at your house?
Yes,
I'm hoping. Okay.
I do have water. I currently have to have my backflow valve shut.
Okay.
That's the part that is damaged, is my backflow valve. This backflow valve is installed directly to protect my line from surges from the city lines and your lines from surges from my lines.
Sure.
It is a line designed to equally protect our systems. When this meter was replaced, they were admittedly have stated that they are unfamiliar with these systems, would not have known to take any additional precautions. And I've had 3 different plumbers tell me that they are 100% certain that the diaphragm or some other internal component of this backflow valve has been broken now. So now I have a leak where now I have to go down and check the pressures on my systems to open them back up and manually regulate my system rather than have something do this accordingly.
Sure. And Travis, has there been a claim filed with the contractor's insurance?
Yes, the Ms. Hanson did provide a claim or talk to the contractor. They did submit that through their insurance, and their insurance did deny it. Ms. Hanson and I did have a conversation after that, and because it's, we also talked with our insurance just to see if there was anything there. We did not submit a claim to them, but they did say because we did not do the work that MPS, that they would deny the claim if MPS submitted a claim to our insurance. So at that point, with the policy that the commission has in place, I had to deny it at that point in time, and then inform Ms. Hanson to attend the commission and see if there was any reprieve that the commission could give at that point in time.
Yeah, and that's understandable. And please understand, Rose, that MPS, we're not trying to be the bad guy. We're just trying to
No,
make sure the risk and the liability are being covered by the right entity. And in this case, it sounds like it is the contractor.
Yes.
Despite their insurance policy, policy denying the claim, it's still the contractor's responsibility for this particular item, I would say.
Yeah, Jake, I know you had more conversations with the contractor. Do you want to provide any additional information, or do you have any additional information? You want to come to the podium?
Yeah, after I did talk with Robin, he's the contractor, and he just said that this was something that they, we have to shut the water off to be able to replace the water meter, and so something that's kind of unavoidable. So that's kind of where our discussion was had, and after talking through their process with their insurance company, that they denied it because it was basically unavoidable. To replace the meter, you do have to shut the system down.
Jake, is there any special precautions that need to be taken when shutting a system down with a tankless water heater?
That I'm not aware of at this time. I'm not sure.
Okay. So again, I completely empathize with your frustration on this issue. I would like to get some answers on that, Travis, if there were special precautions that need to be taken with a tankless water heater, because I imagine this is not going to be the first tankless water heater we encounter within the community. And if there are special procedures that weren't done by the contractor, I think that would be a critical piece of information for us to know in order to continue this dialogue with the contractor themselves.
Sure. Yeah. Do you want to form a working group to just to talk about it, so we don't have a quorum of the commissioners that are all know what's going on? I think that would be appropriate, and then bring something back, or maybe I can make a decision based on that. Or to be honest with you, at the end of the day, it should really go back to the contractor to just discussed, and maybe there's some reevaluation of their insurance claim or her insurance claim.
Do want to note, I have not received any evidence of an insurance claim being filed. I haven't been contacted by insurance. My only contact has been with Robin. who's the,
With the contractor?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
We can look
that is
into it.
all I've had.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you for
Yeah.
giving me an update.
And I also apologize how slow these things take.
No, I understand.
So, but yes, Travis, whatever your recommendation is, if we need to have a working group or if it's, something like that, let's set that up in the meantime.
Okay.
We don't need to have a commission vote on,
I don't know if you want to use the budget committee or for something like that, or trying to remember if there was another committee that's out there. I would say budget might be the best one. But at that point, I don't know if we have all the commissioners on there again. Because it would have been you and Paul and Matt Gilbertson would have been the last one. So you probably want, unless you want to deal with it with two, or if you want to add a third commissioner in there, you can.
okay. Anybody, Paul, are you game? Anybody else want to nominate for a working group?
You're saying the budget committee could just handle it?
I would, but you're going to need to replace Matt Gilbertson. He was the other budget committee working group member.
I can do it.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
May I make a comment as well?
Yep.
So I know Rose came to the city council meeting too, so thank you for coming here as well. There was a lot of discussion at that meeting, not by Rose, but by the other individual who wanted to be heard, about a non-licensed plumber. And I think that it's worth noting that under the statute, it's not considered plumbing, so it's not required to have a licensed plumber. So I just want to make sure that the record reflects that the city and MPS is not doing anything that is untoward or illegal or not following the law. So,
Yeah, Jake and I did do some work on that after hearing about it. We did talk with the building codes group at the city of Moorhead. They looked at it. They don't require a permit. They deemed it as maintenance. We then talked to other utilities that are also going through the AMI process as well too, and swapping out those, and nobody's using a licensed plumber to replace the meters. It's just basically an in-kind replacement of the existing meter. So it doesn't require to have a plumber do the actual physical work. If they were to replace a valve or other items, then it requires a permit and a licensed plumber to do that. So when say a valve breaks on at a customer's house, typically it's usually the customer's responsibility to manage that, but because of the project, and we're going to run into this, to just keep the project moving, we've agreed that if there is damage while we're replacing the meter, that we would also fix those valve type items at that point in time as well too. And I did reach out to the Department of Labor just to confirm everything as well too, and they did note that utilities can swap out the meter. They don't have to have a licensed plumber on staff, or the contractor doesn't need to be a licensed plumber as well too. So just a FYI on that.
Yeah, thanks, Travis, and thanks, Commissioner Morgan, for bringing that up, because I think that does need to be clear. And I think your explanation was clear. However, this contractor, of course, is licensed and they are bonded and they have insurance. That would be a requirement for us to approve a contract with them. And again, it seems that the liability is falling on the contractor here, regardless of if their insurance policy is approving or denying a claim. And so we'll look into a few more procedural things to ensure that the contractor did everything that they were supposed to do.
Okay.
And we'll get back to you through Travis, I think, would be our best avenue. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other customers to be heard tonight? Okay, we'll move to recognitions, Travis.
Yeah, I have one quick recognition. Tyler Matheson, he's our senior electric field tech. He just had his 10-year milestone anniversary with us. So just wanted to say thanks for being a tenured employee with MPS. So other than that, that's all I have for recognitions, Mr.
Perfect.
Chair.
Congratulations to Tyler. Okay, we'll move on to old business. Any commissioners have any old business to discuss tonight? Does not look like. So we'll move on to reports. City Council report. Ms. Borgen.
yes, so I did want to report that last week, or was it last week? Week before last, I went to the MRES annual meeting down in Sioux Falls. Jake was there with me. Needless to say, I was a little over my head in some of this electrical jargon, but it was a good learning experience for me. I met a lot of really interesting people, did some networking, got to know Jake better, so I thought it was a really nice experience. And I have told Travis that I'll be going in September to the, I think the leadership will be a little more on par for what I'm looking for, but it was good to dip my toe in the water for that. So that's my report.
Glad you went.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Borgen. I have also attended many of those MRES, and they are invaluable. They are great teachers, and it's a lot of information, as you saw. So I would really encourage any other commissioner that hasn't gone to those to take a look at it.
One other thing I would note, that at the end of the conference, one of the last presentations was about the Navajo Nation down in New Mexico, in which municipal electrical companies send employees down to bring electricity to the reservation. And we saw a video, I don't think there was a dry eye in the house to see people on the reservation. They interviewed a woman, I think she was nearly 80 and had lived in the same house her whole life and had never had electricity. Nor did she really have running water. She had a well. She couldn't pump the water into her house because she had no electricity. And there were families with children, and it was just an amazing, amazing experience. And we were lucky enough to have 3 of the electrical workers who actually went, who came and were part of the presentation, to talk about how it affected them personally and what a great experience it was for them. And it was just really a very heartwarming, and I'm hoping that MPS will consider, doing that. I'm sure if the employees could see the video, they would be excited to go.
I just got the video last week, so we haven't shared it yet, but I'll share it with the commission as well. And hopefully we'll get some takers for next year. I know we tried last year to get some guys to go down. They always go to Florida, but this would be a good one for them to do as well. So hopefully we get some takers.
I think if they saw it,
Oh, yeah.
they would want to go.
Yes, we certainly take electricity for granted sometimes, don't we? And clean water, by the way. Moving on to Public Service Commission reports. Any commissioners have any meetings or reports? Okay. And we'll move on to the general manager's report.
Sure. I've got just a couple items. Again, we've got our first quarter 2025 strategic plan updates. I know we've got a lot on the list tonight, so I'm not going to go through the topics in there, but let's probably key in on the dashboards a little bit. Again, you've got a new set of dashboards in front of you. There was an error on the electric division dashboard. So overall, our purchase power and electricity were below budget for the early year, but we had pretty decent revenues from it as well too. So that was good. We didn't have any accidents as well too. I remember that. I think our costs in the first quarter on the water side for treating water was down as well too, which was a very good thing to see based on the last couple of years of chemical usage and stuff like that. Again, we have seen a lot of increases on the chemical costs themselves, but overall the usage is down a little bit compared to the last couple of years. From a budget perspective, both on the water and electric division, we're doing better than budget, so we have better revenues and less operating costs, so that's a good thing as well too. It's early in the year. We'll see how the rest of the year goes. Again, disconnections were kind of at their standard as well too. A bunch of IT stuff there, or IT GIS stuff in there as well too for cybersecurity, phishing, and stuff like that. One thing to key in on, if you look at the matrices, they look just like this. We've got a lot. We provide this to you as a commission on a quarterly basis, and can see what's in progress, what's been completed, what we haven't started yet. And those are those first year accomplishments. Some of you commissioners weren't involved with that process last fall. We've got a couple of them finished up. I think We've got our water plant supervisor position is filled. We've done some technology work. We got a firewall replacement completed, and then the line crew was pretty busy this winter, and they've got everything from basically Main Avenue to 28th Avenue North. All the lights in that area are now LED, so we have no of the old high-pressure sodium style lights in that area. That doesn't include Oakport. Oakport is another animal, but shouldn't take too much to get that one done as well too. But we'll have to keep an eye on budgets to take care of that as well too. Some legislative updates as well in there. Mark Moylan, you want to give a quick LIHEAP update?
Sure. Thank you, Travis. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mark Moylan, and Finance Division Manager. At the last meeting that we had in late April, we brought some concerns that we were experiencing over the LIHEAP program at the federal level and the impact it was having at the state of Minnesota level, the potential for it to be ceased going forward for the rest of this program year. Early in May, we got word that the final funds were released by the federal government to the state. And so our assistance provider, West Central Communities Action, has been issuing assistance on behalf of our customers and will continue to do continue to do so, and they expect to continue through June or July of this year. Just for reference, so far this year, we've had 1,570 customers take advantage of the program, which has brought in payments of just over $599,000. So it's a good program that's very beneficial for the customers of Moorhead Public Service, and we hope it continues on into the future.
We're keeping an eye on what the 25-26 season looks like, or program year looks like as well too, so from the federal side of things.
So I'll answer any questions?
This is the total number of customers that we have. You say 15 are receiving aid, 1,500.
Correct. We have about 1,800 residential customers, so a little under 10%.
Or 18,000.
18,000, I'm sorry, 18,000.
That completes my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the general manager's report?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ness, second by Borgen. Roll call vote. Borgen?
Yes.
Baker?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Lyseth?
Aye.
Duran?
Yes.
Paulson, yes. We'll move on to item 8D, accept report on the 2024 Conservation Improvement Program Summary and 2025 CIP Plan.
Okay, I'm going to let Taylor Holt speak to this. As an annual item, annual report that we provide to the commission. So Taylor, go ahead and have at it.
Good afternoon, Commission. Taylor Holt, Project Engineer. The Conservation Improvement Program is jointly filed with Missouri River Energy Services, and its general goals are to promote consumer and industry awareness of energy conservation and its positive effect on the environment, reduce utility bills for homes and businesses, generate innovations in developing energy-efficient products and technologies, promote new energy resource development, and it consists of a savings goal, an energy savings goal of 1.5% of the utility's annual retail energy sales to be spent towards these different programs that I'll describe a little later. 2024 in review, we exceeded our state mandated spending requirements. Our total spending came in at $691,688, and our goal was down at $620,000 and $744. The 2025 plan is very similar to 2024 with a couple additions. It consists of several programs that we've had for way longer than I've been here, but includes Thrifty Watts and dual fuel, which are residential and small commercial load control programs. It consists of larger commercial and industrial interruptible load programs. It includes our Bright Energy Solutions rebate program, upgrading street lights to LED fixtures, and a low-income appliance upgrade program, which involves upgrading 10-plus-year-old appliances for energy efficiency purposes. We've noticed that this is the most important part of the program because it's the part of the program that the state pays most attention to. It requires that we spend a minimum of 0.2% of our electric residential revenue on this energy program to help low-income families be more efficient. MPS consistently exceeds this minimum spending requirements for this part of the program. MPS exceeded it in '24, and we're on pace to meet those requirements again in 2025. The qualifying appliances for this program are dishwashers, clothes washers, refrigerators, and we also added dryers to the program in 2025. In summary, MPS was able to meet all of its spending goals for the SIP program in 2024. The plan is similar to the plan in 2025, with the addition of dryers being included in the low-income appliance upgrade program, as well as some updates and revisions to the Bright Energy Solutions Energy Rebate Program. Do the commissioners have any questions on the SIP report for 2024 or the SIP plan for 2025 at this time?
Ms. Bergen?
I have a question. Thanks. Taylor, how are you letting people know that they could be getting a more modern appliance, or how do they know about this?
This is advertised through West Central. They oftentimes target lower income customers that they're aware of. They go through and do an energy audit, and they are trained to identify these appliances that are eligible for upgrades, make them aware of it. And we kind of have a little bit of a hands-off approach and contract West Central to file all of that work, but then we align them with the appliance vendor and get shipping lined up through them.
Do you have any idea what the percentage of people that take advantage of it? If West Central identifies people, sends them the information, do we have any idea of how many of those people are taking them up on it?
Oftentimes, the only ones that get denied are ones that aren't able to get an exact size refrigerator to replace the existing one, or if they're not satisfied with the colors that are offered. But we don't keep track of those that opt out for any reason. We've had canceled orders over the last couple of years, but they're not very often.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Taylor, how many customers on an annual basis do we receive new appliances?
I don't know the number exactly off the top of my head, but it's generally between like 30 and 40 customers. And most of the time, they don't just get one appliance. It consists of 2 or 3 up to this point. But now with the dryers, they'll have the potential for 4. We do limit the customer to a maximum of $2,500 to an individual customer per year. But we ran the numbers before we added dryers, and based on the quotes we received this year, they're actually able to get all 4 appliances and not exceed that amount.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, just because Moorhead Public Service is the best public utility in the state of Minnesota. How do we compare as far as this program with other utilities around the state?
Well, we
As far as spending, obviously we're 1.5 times what the state mandated spend rate is for the program. Are other utilities spending at that rate as well?
we're not 1.5 times the spending rate. We just try to meet that 1.5%. Last year was the first time that I've been involved with the Energy Services Program that we didn't meet the minimum spending requirement.
Okay.
But we had some lackluster rebate reimbursements or payouts last year that drastically affected it. And then we also had a very, very low amount of load management due to some changes in our basically our electrical demand at the utility. We were setting our set points too high and not controlling enough.
Okay.
we've
Well,
adjusted
maybe I
downward.
misunderstood
Yeah,
you
sorry.
because you had mentioned $900,000 spend with a $600,000 required.
691,000 spent with 620 as a goal.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
and
I mixed up a number there then.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was wondering where the 1.5 times that makes sense. We're not like competitive on it, or at least we don't compare it that way. We're trying to meet that state mandate.
Sure.
We do have some goals that are set by Missouri River Energy Services because we file this jointly, but they are very unattainable without tripling or quadrupling the amount of money spent, just because we've been doing this for several years, and if you try to reduce your total energy usage by a percentage, you're eventually going to go over 100% as it compounds, and it kind of has diminishing returns. So we're
Sure.
kind of at that point. Last year we met 20% of the goal, and I think generally we're around 10% of that total savings.
Got it.
But that's just kind of looking at one aspect. We do try to save on demand. We put a high importance on that because that makes up most of our purchase power bill. So it helps both our purchase power costs as well as trying to reduce that upward pressure on rates. All of it
Understood.
ties together.
Yep. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote to accept the report. Borgen?
Yes.
Just wait. Sorry, I missed the motion in a second.
Motion.
So moved.
Okay. Ness made the motion. Duran second. Borgen was an aye. Baker? Ness?
Aye.
Lyseth?
Aye.
Durand?
Yes.
And Paulson is a yes. Okay, we'll move on to item 8E, accept the report on lead and copper rule revision sampling. I think we got Mark Pritchard.
Yep, Mark's going to talk about all the fun lead and copper rule revisions, so I'll let him go right ahead.
All right, thank you, Travis. Mark Pritchard, Water Plant Manager. A little bit of quick background on the lead and copper rule. Originally started up in 1991, and the primary goal is to reduce exposure in tap water to lead in drinking water and copper in drinking water. Primarily, those types of heavy metal contaminants are introduced in the distribution system after the end of our publicly owned section, if that makes sense. So MPS owns to the curb stop and the water mains back to our facility for treatment. We don't have any lead compounds, brass compounds, or anything that has lead introduced into the system. The potential exposure comes from lead service lines that we've done a lot of discussions over the past several months about, and things like household plumbing fixtures and lead solder in the premise plumbing itself. So as the lead and copper rule has rolled forward since 1991, we've done interim monitoring on what's called a reduced monitoring schedule. Initially, when this rule came out, every 6 months, utilities sampled at a frequency based off of how many service connections they had. And then as you had exceedingly low results, you were able to go from every 6 months to a year to every third year sampling if you had consistently low levels. This year, things are changing. With the advent of the lead and copper rule revisions on October 7th, 2024, and then the subsequent lead and copper rule improvements to the lead and copper rule revisions, there's a lot of new things that utilities like MPS have to watch out for and be prepared for. One of those items is involving the actual sampling protocol itself. It's changing significantly compared to what we've seen in the past, and that's what we wanted to bring as a report to the commission tonight. So in the past, it meant that we had service lines that we had previously identified, but we didn't have very many lead service lines identified. Through the efforts of our distribution manager, Jake Long, and several others, we have a very robust inventory now that locates not all, but a very large proportion of our total service lines, and it identifies lead, copper with lead solder, other things that are considered the new Tier 1 sample locations for this sampling protocol. The changes came in January 22nd, 2025, when staff went to a Minnesota Department of Health meeting that talked about the changes to the protocol, but not the change in the timing. So for us, it kind of put us into a rock and a hard place where it, in effect, gave us about 4 months to maintain compliance. So we proactively reached out to the compliance personnel, said, hey, is there something that we can adjust? This doesn't make sense for MPS. And we proposed an alternative that was then accepted. So what that means for us is instead of doing our reduced monitoring sample, starting up a new process called orthophosphate that we've talked about before and the commission has approved, and then have to redo the standard monitoring, we did get the go-ahead from the state compliance personnel to first turn on the orthophosphate system and let it run for approximately 60 days. And then using our new lead service lines from our inventory, we will jump directly into standard monitoring at that point. So that means that every 6 months we'll take 60 samples throughout the distribution system. Our anticipation is that with this new orthophosphate system, we will see very low levels compared to what we've seen in the past, and that will help us go back to that once every third year reduced monitoring schedule as time progresses. The interesting part is these provisions, for the most part, nationwide are going to be in effect as of November 1st, 2027. The way the state compliance personnel basically instructed all the utilities in Minnesota to prepare for this, we had, again, that 4-month window, which just wasn't enough time. So through some collaborative discussions with the state, we do have a plan and a time frame that makes a lot better sense. And we're expecting to begin sampling as early as July, but we have until the end of December. So our goal right now is to get that orthophosphate started up and probably have it run until that August-September timeframe, and then jump into that standard monitoring sample. So what could have been a significant issue and a possible PR issue now has been mitigated. We have enough time to, I think, do a really good job with the sample set. So I wanted to give that as an update to the commission. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the protocol, the correspondence with the state, or anything related.
Any questions from the commission? Well, thank you, Mark, for your continued partnership with our state partners and you being proactive on this issue. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll look for a motion to accept the report on lead and copper rule revision.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion from Lysa, second from Borgen. Roll call vote. Borgen?
Yes.
Baker?
Aye.
Ness? Lysa?
Aye.
Durand?
Yes.
Paulson? Yes. All
Mr.
right.
Chair,
Yes.
we've got Jamie Fay on from Ide Bailey. Can we move item 17 up so she doesn't have to listen to the whole meeting before we get to her?
Well, I know Jamie very well. I think she'd be interested in this agenda, but yes, we will make an exception. So we can move item 17 and have Ide Bailey present on the audit.
All right, so again, I'm going to have Mark Moylan come up. Mark and Allison, our accountant, is in the audience tonight. Did a fantastic job working through this with Ide Bailey and going through all the work of putting everything together. And we're in a good spot. We've got a clean audit, and I'll let Mark and Jamie go from there.
All right, well, thank you, Travis. Again, Mark Moylan, and Finance Division Manager. Item 17 on the agenda is to present the 2024 audited financial statements. As part of Moorhead Public Services role, we are required to submit audited financial statements annually to the Commission, and Ide Bailey has served as our external auditor for a number of years. We have a very positive and professional relationship with Ide Bailey and the various leads that we've had throughout the years. This year is no exception. I'd like to thank Braden Axman, who served as the lead audit senior associate out of the Fargo Ide Bailey office. He did a tremendous amount of work with our field work, following up with staff. And I'd like to also thank Allison Skansgard, accountant, and Katie Kemper, our accounts payable and HR specialist, who did a lot of the work on the field work portion of this audit. As Travis alluded to, again, our goal is to have a clean audit, and we accomplished that this year. I do appreciate your patience as we got the final documents out to you this year. As Jamie will explain on her presentation, there were some new GASB standards that we had to meet this year, and we wanted to make sure the presentation was consistent between what MPS was doing as well as their other audit clients. And so with that, I will turn the presentation over to Jamie, and she will present the 2024 audited financial statements.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and assume that everybody can hear me. If you can't, just raise a hand or pipe up. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen. See if I can get it to work. Right here. So I think that it should be sharing.
Yep, we can see it, Jamie.
Perfect. All right, so quick introduction. My name is Jamie Fay, as Mark said. I'm the audit partner for Moorhead Public Services Audit. I have been for a couple years. I've been involved off and on for many years. I've been with the firm for about 16. I live, eat, and breathe government standards, so this is kind of my bread and butter. So we did finish the audit. We actually finished it just this afternoon, right in the nick of time. And I'll explain a little bit of the background for that. But when we're talking about the current year, we're talking about the year ended December 31st, 2024. We're going to go ahead and go through this executive summary for you. This is just kind of some graphs. It should be similar to what you've seen in the past if you've been involved in some of those meetings. This is to take some of that really standard heavy information in the financials and bring it to you in a way that hopefully is helpful, gives you some information that you can utilize for your purposes. So first of all, audit recap. When you hire Ike Bailey to come in and do an audit, you hire us to perform an audit in accordance with some standards. You would hire us to come in and give an opinion on if the financial statements are materially accurate or not. That does not mean we looked at every single transaction or recalculated things to the penny. That means we recalculated a handful of things. We looked at sample selection of some invoices. We did kind of a broad general testing of a bunch of different balances depending on some risk factors. So we had some discussions with management. As Mark said, Braden was kind of the main go-to in the details, and he was able to get through all the testing. So through all of that, then we come out and we give an audit opinion on if the financial statements are materially accurate or not. This year, there was a new standard that got implemented that was turning out to be a little bit of more of a doozy than we expected. So it was GASB 101 for compensated absences. All it really did was change a little bit in the way that compensated absences are calculated and reported in the financials. So it just took a little bit of extra work. Compensated absences are things like sick leave, vacation leave, those types of things. So worked with Mark pretty closely to get that kind of on board with the standards, and then also working with the city to make sure, because the MPS report flows into the city, that all of that was consistent and making sure that it was how it was handled as well. So that was the reason for the little bit of delay, is that new standard. So for the audit recap, we did some planning in December through February. We really did our field work in March, finished up some of our testing in April, and then we reported. That date is not updated for 5/16. We actually issued the report today. So 5/20 is the date of the audit opinion. So audit results, that is the first question I always get. How did we do? What did we get? As has been alluded to, the MPS received a clean audit opinion, or it's called an unmodified opinion. That means that there was no material misstatements in the report. When we looked at it, that is the opinion that you received. That's what you want, so that's good news. In addition to that, you can have findings along with a clean audit opinion. This year, you had no financial statement findings and no Minnesota legal compliance findings. So one of the things that we have to test for Minnesota governments is, in accordance with certain state statutes, did you follow statutes in regards to the way you bid things and in the way that you're holding pledge collateral? So we tested a number of things. There was no findings there that needed to be reported either. So all great news on this slide. Now we're going to look at a little bit of the numbers of it. This is not to say where you should be. This is just to give you some historical context for where MPS is compared to where they've been. So cash and investments, this is for both the water and electric fund. You can see the breakout. The cash can ebb and flow a little bit depending on if you have big receivables or big payables at the end of the year. So again, it does not say you should have this number. It's just to show you kind of where you've been compared to where you are at the end of 2024. So the next graph is operating cash. So this is only looking at the operating cash. We do have water and electric broken out in these columns, and then the total as well. So you had about 10.8 million in total operating cash. You can see the way it was broken down. More of it was in electric than water, and not a significant swing kind of over the years. A little bit of a dip this year, but that, again, cash is a little bit indicative of where are you at with accounts payable, accounts receivable, those types of things. So cash and investment reserves those are useful to have because they contribute to a favorable bond rating. This, in addition to a positive net position, produces some investment income, so some working capital. And then third, and I would argue probably most importantly, it offers a little bit of a cushion for unexpected expenditures or revenue shortfalls, something like a global pandemic or some federal funding, or a natural disaster of some sort. So having that cushion there useful for governments to have. Another way you can look at cash is days cash on hand. So days cash on hand, you can see um, again, this one ebbs and flows a little bit. We've got it here broken out between electric and water. There is a target in here, and you can see that you've exceeded that most of the years in this graph, with the exception of the first few. So that's in there for you to see as well. Okay, now we'll look at some operations. So these graphs are going to look like this for both of the funds. So first we're going to look at the electric fund. The top line is the operating revenues, followed by operating expenses, operating income, and then transfers out. So you can see this is pretty consistent year over year. These are big numbers, but when you really look at it over kind of the last, since 2017, it really doesn't ebb and flow that much. Through our procedures, what we do is we do a number of different analytics. So we say, what do we think this revenue should be compared to what it is? And we were able to get answers on all of that. And if we weren't able to, you would have seen some kind of modification on the opinion. So that's great news. The next graph is the electric fund margins. So one way to look at how are those numbers looking is the operating margin. So this is really a product of the operating income and revenues, and the net income or loss and operating revenues for the electric fund. So that's in here. Again, this is not saying this is where you should be. This is just showing you where you've been. So the net margin increased just a little and the operating margin decreased just a little bit, but pretty consistent from year over year. Next up is the same look and feel. This is the water fund this time. So this one did have a little bit more of an increase in those operating expenses, which everybody at MPS had a really good handle on. So I'm not going to get into the details of that, but you can just see where you've been compared to where you're at for 2024. And then the margins on this one are on this slide. So they did dip a little bit for operating margin and net margin, a little bit more of a dip for operating margin there. And that is just indicative of some of those activity that we saw on the last slide in terms of expenditures. Next up is debt service coverage. So debt service coverage is really a way to look at what is your cash flow available to meet your payments on your debt. So every year you've got to make principal and interest payments. If you had a ratio of 1.0, that would mean you have $1 for every dollar in debt payment that you have. So if you only have $1 for $1 in debt payment, that's a wash. So you've got about 3.5 for 2024, which again is pretty consistent to 2023. This number can really ebb and flow for a couple of reasons. One is that cash balance can change a little bit year over year, and then depending on where you're at in your debt cycle. If you just pay off some debt, this number is going to go up. If you take out new debt, this number is probably going to go down. So again, not saying where you should be. This is just to give you an idea of where you've been. And with that, that is all the graphs and colors that I have. I will pause here, see if there are any questions for me. I know I zipped through that pretty fast, but all in all, the main points are clean opinion, no findings, which is what everybody likes to hear.
All right, any questions from any commissioners? Yes.
Okay, I have a question. On the report that we got today, I don't know which, it's financial statements is on the first page. They talk about uncorrected misstatements summarized below. Can you just explain those? Because I'm not an accountant and I don't understand that.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So that one is related to that GASB 101 that I talked about, compensated absences. So when there are new standards that come out, a lot of times what they say is you have to make that standard implemented for the beginning of year and end of year that you're reporting. And from an audit perspective, when we go in and we say, yes, your financial statements are materially accurate, there is a number where if it's above a number but below materiality, we have to address it in some fashion. When we looked at GASB 101, it wasn't big enough that it was material where we said you have to restate beginning of year, which would mean another footnote and really changing that beginning of year net position number. Instead, for MPS, the difference in the beginning of year calculation was a number that was big enough we had to do something with, but not big enough we had to restate. So what the option there is, it can be what's called a past adjustment. And that just means, hey, we know this isn't quite recalculated and reported within the new standard, but it's not big enough that it's going to affect your opinion. And in a lot of cases, it's just easier to run it through as a past adjustment, which only shows up on that management letter that you see. So that's just the acknowledgement saying, hey, there was a new standard. That number did change the beginning numbers, but they did not restate prior year numbers. That is being done the same way that the city's doing it for disclosure purposes as well. And that honestly, that part of it was the piece that was a little bit tricky for us to work through with Mark and his team, just to determine, do we want to restate this or do we want to do it as a past adjustment? Ultimately ended on a past adjustment, so that's why you see that in there. So does that answer your question?
I think so, yep, thank you.
It's a lot of accounting jargon, so GASB can get really tricky, so I appreciate the question.
There's no other questions. I'd like to thank Mark and his team and the team at iBailey, of course, and great news. I'm glad we don't have any more questions for you, Jamie. So, but thank you. That was very clear and concise, and we appreciate it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to just extend my appreciation to Mark and his team. I know especially with these new standards coming out, it can be a lot when the auditors come in and shake everything up. So appreciate their hard work, and working alongside them every year has been really enjoyable. So appreciate that, and glad we got it all buttoned up for you. If you have any questions, my contact information is at the end of the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. I'll look for a motion to accept the 2024 audited financial statements.
So moved.
Motion by Ness, second by Durand. Roll call vote. Borgen?
Yes.
Baker?
Aye.
Ness? Lyseth?
Aye.
Durand?
Yes.
Paulson? Aye. All right, great. We'll move back up to item number 9, the award bid for roof replacement at 415 Highway 75 North.
All right, I'm going to have Adam Benthart come up. He's our construction manager. We've got a roof that we've had in the budget to replace. Adam was working with YHR and Sandman Construction to put together specs for that. It actually came in way less than expected. So we actually didn't need to bring it to the commission, but since we approved specs and authorized advertisement, we figured we'd bring it back to you guys. So I'll let Adam kind of speak to everything else and give you the good news.
After our evening now, Adam Benhart, construction manager. This item is in front of you to award the bid for the replacement of the roof at MPS's storage building at 415 Highway 75 North, which is directly north of the water plant, known as the church, if you've heard it called that. It's the brown and blue building. Construction will consist of installing new metal panels over the existing roof, new fascia, soffits, and gutters. On May 8th, we received 6 qualified bids, as you can see in your attached bid tabulation sheet. You'll see the lowest qualified bid was from Gateway Building Systems out of West Fargo in the amount of $164,200. This amount was nearly half of our engineering estimate of $300,000, if we were only so lucky to have that happen all the time. At this time, Sandman Structural Engineers and MPS staff recommend awarding the bid to Gateway Building Systems. Construction will take place this summer and will be completed no later than October 31st of this year, and this project is included in our budget for 2025. Any questions?
Any questions? All right. Thank you. Look for a motion to approve the bid.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion from Borgen, second from Baker. Roll call vote. Borgen?
Yes.
Baker?
Aye.
Ness? Lyseth?
Aye.
Durand?
Yes.
And Paulson, yes. All right, we'll move to item number 11, the approval of summer voluntary watering restrictions.
Yes, I'm going to have water plant manager Mark Pritchard come up and speak to this. Get another annual item since we've got a bunch of new commissioners on board. Be good to have you guys understand what we're doing. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Travis. Mark Pritchard, water plant manager. This item is an annual item that the commission has approved going all the way back to 1990. This is really one of those efforts that we do every year as part of a pretty broad initiative to conserve our water resources, reduce our peak demands during the summertime months and then the associated chemical costs that go with it, and then overall just being good stewards of our natural resources. This part of the state of Minnesota doesn't have a whole lot of excess water, so we want to make sure that every drop counts. So as part of these recommendations tonight, not only are we looking for the approval of the summer water restrictions, the voluntary water restrictions, new this year we are also preemptively requesting authorization, should we need it, to proceed with further conservation measures if it's warranted by the Department of Natural Resources. So for a little bit of context there, the state of Minnesota has recently started becoming very active with a drought committee that covers the whole state of Minnesota. And when they see that river levels, groundwater levels, and soil precipitation, that antecedent soil moisture content, if that starts to get below a certain threshold, they are starting to send out notifications to municipalities to say, try to cut back as much as you can. The last time that we received this in earnest was in the summer of 2021 during that pretty severe flash drought that we had experienced. And we were requested, really required by the DNR to cut back to January flows plus an additional 25%. So it's a big cut compared to what we typically pump in the summertime. So that is the addition that we are asking for tonight, in addition to the approval of the voluntary watering restrictions. A little bit of context for the voluntary nature that we typically start the summer off with. We like to do odd, even watering protocols for residents. So that means that if you have an odd numbered home on an odd numbered day, we encourage folks to do their lawn watering, their pressure washing of their vehicles, things that use a lot of water outdoors. We like to encourage people to use an every other day basis, again, just to be good stewards of that resource. And then for the other folks in town that have an even numbered address, we encourage them to use the even numbered calendar days. That's how this one kind of sets up. There are some exceptions for the voluntary restrictions for things like gardens, newly planted flowers, trees and shrubs, and then newly sodded seeds and lawns. We want to make sure that those green up and don't have to have the expense to try to put them in twice. So that is the main piece for the voluntary restrictions. And again, these are going to remain voluntary until such time that the summer weather mandates further action. So hopefully we don't have that, and the rains that we've been getting so far seem to be helping us. That's a good thing. I'm probably the only one in Clay County wishing for more. But a little bit of history on the water conservation process that we have. Going back to 2013, we do have water conservation rates that have been in place. That was a Minnesota statute that was put in place at that time. And we do have our summer surcharge rates listed at the bottom of the item if there are curiosities on what those charges are. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions?
I have a question for Mark.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mark, I trust you on all water issues, so have we looked at, and I'm a new member of this team last year, and I started to realize that I was using a ton of water, watering every day. I wasn't following the voluntary. So similar to like the Energy Star appliances, what about the smart watering stuff? Is there a way to incentivize people to switch over that? Like a smart timer and things like that? Like, I'm sure you're familiar with what I'm talking about.
Yes, they're like irrigation sprinklers that have little timers on them.
Yep, or even the smart ones, like it'll follow the weather on an app.
Mm-hmm.
Like this week it wouldn't run because it's raining every day, right? It's a conservation mechanism. Have you guys ever looked at that? I mean, as far as, like Taylor's working on the Energy Star appliance thing, same concept, right? Just for smart watering or smart, trying to incentivize a little bit of high technology to try and conserve in the summer months.
Yeah, good question. So lucky for us, a lot of the contractors installing new irrigation systems are starting to morph to those types of systems. It's been a natural progression that their industry has kind of morphed to. There are some that don't install them because they do cost extra, but Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we have new customers move into town, we do still send them the welcome to Moorhead type package that has a timer that you can hook up like a garden hose to, correct?
We do have them, but we send them a flyer that says come pick it up, and usually they don't come pick it up. So,
right. Right.
Good question, Paul or Mr. Baker. We do have it with the smart thermostat. Might be something we talk to Bright Energy Services about. I mean, it doesn't really relate to water, but I think they give a $50 credit, right, Taylor? for the smart thermostats? 25.
Yeah,
So,
so along the lines of the smart thermostat, right? If you install a smart water system, and you probably could flag based on billing, who's watering a lot? I mean, you could go through and figure
yeah.
out who waters their lawn too much.
with
and then,
with AMI, we will be able to.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, similar to Energy Star, smart thermostats, there's smart watering stuff, like you said, the newer homes probably are moving to that, but there's probably a ton that there's just an incentive or something we could push out in marketing to get a little more efficient.
Yeah, we can take a note and put that on the list and see
Yeah.
what we can do with it. So,
And we do have some information on the MPS website, but it's something that we could certainly add to. I agree.
good idea.
All right, any other questions? Okay, I'll look for a motion for approval.
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion from Ness, second by Durand. Roll call vote. Borgen,
Yes.
Baker,
Aye.
Ness, Lyseth,
Aye.
Durand,
Yes.
and Paulson. Yes. We'll move to item number 14, the appointment of a MPS commission representative to serve on MPS's wellhead protection team.
Sure. It's kind of been the Mark show tonight, so I'll let Mark Pritchard talk to this again. We're coming into our 10-year wellhead protection revamp or re-up, whatever you want to call it, and we need to have a commissioner that sits on that wellhead protection team, so I'll let Mark go from there.
Thank you, Travis. Again, Mark Pritchard, Water Plant Manager. As Travis had mentioned, this is for the commission to appoint a representative to what we call our wellhead protection team. The team itself has a wide variety of individuals that we request input from as we go through our 10-year update process to the wellhead protection plan. So going back to the early 2000s, the state of Minnesota really pushed hard to get protection plans for wellheads and surface water sources that are used for municipal water supply, to make sure that you keep the contaminants out before they get in and you have all kinds of fun and interesting, expensive issues. So as MPS has learned over the course of the past several updates, we have a lot of stakeholders, particularly for the Buffalo Aquifer to the east of town. It's a very vulnerable groundwater source that has been in the news a lot lately as we talk about future land use changes potentially on the horizon for Moorhead. And the timing is just about perfect to go through this process, because then as those land use talks are being held, we'll also be talking about the updates to the wellhead protections to make sure that that aquifer is able to be used when those not so rainy days are here. So as part of that process, we first like to have the commissioners appoint a representative. I think we always ask for one. So if we could do that tonight, that would be wonderful. And then we're also asking for the authorization for General Manager Schmidt and myself to go to other local governmental unit boards, such as the Clay County Board, the City of Dilworth, and others, to ask for them to also appoint their own representative. At the last time we did this in 2011 to 2013, I think we had close to 30 members designated. Not all of them could always make it, but we did also include folks like the landowners out on the Buffalo Aquifer to make sure that all the stakeholders have a say in the process, and then hopefully help out in that implementation. And it's been really a case study of success for wellhead protection, not only in Minnesota, but the upper Midwest. So it's been a really successful program over the years.
I'd say at least one. If there's two that are interested, more the merrier.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds great.
I would
go ahead,
be very
Heidi.
interested in serving on that committee.
Right. Okay, that was easy. Okay, so I'll look for a motion to approve Durand and Ness as commission representatives on the wellhead protection team, as well as authorize general manager and Travis and Mark to engage the other local government units.
So moved.
Right.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion from Lysa, second from Borgen. Roll call vote. Borgen. Baker. Ness. Lyseth.
Aye.
Durand.
Yes.
And Paulson. Yes. All right, we'll move on to item number 15, the approval of a sponsorship request for Moorhead Sausage Fest 2025.
I'll take this one. We did have a request come in. They actually tried last year. Timing just didn't work out right. It's part of the Oktoberfest inspired time of year, so they're requesting $1,500. We did work with Flaherty and Hood to confirm that this was a viable sponsorship, and they did approve it after pretty good vetting. Just because I wanted to make sure it was right, because it just was had a couple different things that just didn't feel comfortable for me. So overall, it is sponsorable. We're comfortable with it. So far this year, on an annual basis, we have $50,000 to spend. So far, we've spent about $7,100 as of tonight. Once these are approved, of course, those will add to that total number. So we're in a good spot. I think it's a good opportunity, and that it's open to the public and everything else. So
I move to approve it. I've
Perfect.
been to the Sausage Fest. It's a very fun event, and I think it's great. So
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote. Borgen?
yes,
Baker?
Aye.
Ness? Lyseth?
Aye.
Durand?
Yes.
And Paulson? Yes. Move to another sponsorship, I believe. Number 16, the request from Fred Dissonance for the Moorhead Juneteenth celebration.
Yeah, I'll take this one again. Typically, that event is held right here at the Hemcom Center. Because of a previous booking, they couldn't hold it here. They're holding it at MSUM this year. Mayor suggested they reach out to MPS to see if we'd be interested in sponsoring that event as well too. Again, vetted it because we weren't too sure what it was all about. And again, it's available and approval for the commission tonight as per the policy, recommending $2,500 for that.
All right. Discussion?
Apologize, I thought it was at MSUM. It's at Concordia.
Thanks, Travis. All right, is there a motion?
so moved.
All right, we got a motion from Borgen, second from Ness. Roll call vote. Borgen?
Yes,
Baker?
Aye.
Ness? Lyseth?
Aye.
Durand?
Yes.
Paulson? Yes. All right, we'll move to item number 18, closed meeting for executive session. We will be having a closed meeting. There does not intend to be any action after the meeting, so. Oh, I don't know if I have that, Travis. Thank you. I knew I had something I had to read. This meeting will now be closed for executive session as permitted by Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05, Subdivision 3C, to discuss possible property transaction involving parcel number 10.032.1000 in Clay County, Minnesota. I guess I'm supposed to ask the attorney, do we expect action to be taken after the closed session? Okay. Okay, so further action is not expected in open session. Therefore, we will adjourn upon conclusion of the executive session.
Need to do a motion
Motion
and a
to adjourn.
second to go into closed session.
Okay,
So moved to adjourn the meeting.
motion from Baker, second. Second from Ness, roll call.
Actually, it should be a motion to go into executive session.
Okay,
Motion to go into executive session, sorry.
all right. Second. Roll call vote. Borgen?
yes.
Baker? Ness? Lyseth? Durand?
Yes.
Paulson? Yes.